Hello there, I am Lady Loy and I am on Fridays on Lovers Rock Radio. If you like nostalgic vibes, all the old tunes, Lovers Rock, whatever, you might like to tune in. And on Saturdays, I'm on the roller coaster show where I play practically anything I feel like. It's like a roller coaster, go up and down, might be dancehall, might be soca, could be anything. But tonight I wanted to talk about the Windrush, the Empire Windrush, the boat that brought all of those people from the Caribbean onto the UK. And I never heard that it was blown up and that it sunk. Have you heard that? Well, this is a fact apparently, and I'm going to share with you the story. When we say the name Empire Windrush, most people think of arrival on June 1948, of men and women stepping on British soil with suitcases, hope and uncertainty stitched together. That moment has been told, retold and rightly honoured, but every story that begins somewhere also ends somewhere. And the end of the Empire Windrush is a chapter that rarely gets spoken aloud. In March 1954, 6 years after that historic docking at Tilbury, the ship that had carried so many lives and futures was herself in trouble, not arriving, but returning, not full of anticipation, but routine. She was a troopship then, moving service personnel and their families back towards Britain, doing what she had done for years, quietly, reliably, without ceremony. It was early morning when the explosion happened. Most people were still asleep. Some were dreaming, others half awake, thinking about breakfast, letters, waiting at home and the end of a long journey. Then the sound, not dramatic at first, just wrong, a heavy thud. Lights flicker, smoke rising where smoke should never be. And suddenly the ship that had once symbolised beginnings was fighting for survival. 4 men in the engine room never made it out. Engineers, crew members, working below deck, unseen, doing the kind of labour that keeps everything else moving. Their names are rarely spoken when Windrush is mentioned, yet they were a part of her story too. Their lives ended there, in heat and darkness, while above them something extraordinary was happening. There was no chaos, no stampede, no panic. Passengers were awoken, guided, reassured. Mothers gathered children, men helped strangers into lifeboats. Crew members stayed calm even as the ship lost power. Systems failed, but people did not. And one by one, more than 1,200 souls were lowered into the Mediterranean Sea and lifted onto rescue vessels that answered the call. Every passenger survived. And it's one of those moments in history that feels almost unbelievable. Tragedy without mass loss. Fear held together by discipline and care. By the time the survivors reached Algiers, wrapped in blankets and shock, the ship that had carried them was burning out at sea. For more than a day, Empire Windrush drifted empty and aflame, like a ghost of herself. Attempts were made to save her, to tow her back, to preserve what she had been. But by the early hours on the 30th of March 1954, she slipped beneath the water and disappeared. No fanfare, no crowd, no headlines that matched her legacy. And here's where the story becomes more than a maritime story. Because when we think about Windrush generation today, elders filling out compensation forms, families still waiting for recognition, people explaining again and again why they belonged. It's not hard to see the echo. A vessel that gave so much, then quietly discarded. A service rendered, then questioned. A legacy celebrated in one breath and neglected in the next. Many of those who came on Windrush were Christians, people of faith, people who believed in order, contribution, obedience, service. Some of them later asked quietly or aloud how a life lived rightly could still end in such hardship, how they could give decades of labour, raise children, build communities, and still told they did not belong. The story of the ship itself almost answers that question. Empire Windrush did everything she was asked to do. She served in the war. She carried troops. She transported families. She made history without knowing it. And still, she was vulnerable to neglect, age, corrosion, unseen damage, building beneath the surface. Sometimes faith does not prevent fire. Sometimes service does not guarantee protection. Sometimes belonging does not stop abandonment. But what does endure, what endured that morning off Algiers, was human dignity. Care for one another, people refusing to panic, refusing to abandon each other even when the structure around them failed. That same spirit lives on in the Windrush generation today. In their patience, in their resilience, in their insistence that the truth still matters even when it arrives late. The advocacy, the compensation, the continued struggle. It's not about money alone, it's about being seen before the fire consumes the story completely. The ship is gone now, resting somewhere beneath the Mediterranean, but her passengers, her crew, their legacy, they are still with us in memory, in community, in unanswered questions and unfinished justice. And perhaps the lesson of the Empire Windrush is not only about arrival or loss, but about what we owe to those who carried us quietly, faithfully, long before we learned how to say thank you. This programme or this story reflects on the final voyage of HMT Empire Windrush, which caught fire and sank off the coast of Algeria in March 1954, after the successful evacuation of all passengers and crew except for 4 engine room personnel who lost their lives. The broadcast places that maritime event in human and historical context, connecting the ship's legacy to the lived experiences of the Windrush generation, and ongoing conversations about recognition, service, and justice. And that's all I've got to say. I just thought it was really interesting that, all the time we hear about the Windrush, the ship, Empire Windrush, I never heard once that it went under flames. And the only reason I found out it went under flames is because as I was looking for an image for my Windrush about them getting compensation, getting them advocacy grant for the Windrush family, I saw a fire. I saw the